Ahoy mates, and welcome to another Commander Deck Tech. Today we are setting sail on the high seas with none other than Malcolm and Breeches. Our captains are a formidable duo, each bringing their own unique abilities to the table. For main captain we have Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator. Malcolm is a 3-mana 2/2 Siren pirate with flying, and he has the following text. Whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. For our second commander we have Breeches, Brazen Plunderer. Breeches is a 4-mana 3/3 with menace, and he has the following text. Whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponent, similar as Malcolm, exile the top card of each of those opponents' libraries. You may play those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Both of our commander's abilities trigger on damage and not on combat damage, which is more usually seen on these types of commanders, which means that we can abuse these abilities to do some shenanigans that we are going to mention later on. Because of the way that both our commanders are written, if you attack an opponent with multiple pirates and all of them connect, you will only create one treasure and exile one card from that opponent's library. However, if you attack each opponent with one or more pirates, and if they connect, for each opponent that was dealt damage, you will create one treasure and exile one card. Which means that per combat you can create in theory a maximum of 3 treasures and exile one card from each opponent. This deck is also updated with the latest pirates from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. The set had a lot of good pirates that we have tested and run really well with the rest of the cards of the deck. In terms of power level, this is not a CDH deck, even though we already used the deck in a couple of CDH tournaments, and not only did the deck perform well, he actually won 2 of those tourneys. Since this is the case, there are some CDH staples that are missing from the deck, as we wanted to still keep the pirate identity. So, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk crew. For some pirate synergy, we have Lightning Rake crew, Breeches Eager Pillager, Captain Vargo's Wrath, Taunt Crewmate, Roaming Throne, Coercive Recruiter, and Merchant Raiders. These last 2 help us control the board. The majority of our creatures are very small and fragile, so they need these tricks and some evasion in order to connect with our opponents to trigger our commander's abilities. Roaming Throne is also very explosive in this deck, as we have a lot of pirates that have ETBs and other triggers, especially our commanders. The deck is also stocked with lots of card draw and value to help our captains. Cards like the Indomitable, Daring Saboteur, Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel, Pirated Copy, Ravagan, Nimble Pilferer, Dockside Extortionist, Mystic Remora, and Ristic Study. Ravagan works as a mini version of both our commanders, creating a treasure and letting us cast one of the cards that it exiles. With our commanders you can multiply those triggers, as you get one from Malcolm or Breeches and the one from Ragavan. Dockside also creates you a lot of treasures. This deck, because of cards like these and the abilities that our commanders have a treasure sub-team. So we have also cards like Captain Storm to help us with those triggers to make our prize a little bit bigger. The deck also has an alternative win condition, in this case Mechanized Production, which is an enchantment for 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue, that enchants an artifact we control. At the beginning of our upkeep we create a copy of the enchanted artifact, and if we have 8 with the same name we win the game on the spot. We do not run that many artifacts in a deck. If I'm not mistaken we run 5. However, the target for Mechanized Production is always going to be treasure tokens, as our commander creates a vast amount of those and we can reach 8 in no time. The Indomitable. It's the new updated version of Biden of Tassa, but in this case it has some bonus flavor points as it is a pirate ship after all, with a little bit of recursion that we may need later on the game. This is a very fun and colorful deck to play, but also a very powerful one. You have Plan A. If Plan A doesn't go right you go Plan B, and if Plan B also doesn't work out you always have Plan C. Plan A consists of using Malcolm to combo out. We are going to mention later on the video, but because of the way that Malcolm is written, There is a couple of ways that you can abuse his mechanic to basically win the game pretty much on the spot. Plan B is, well, basically attacking with pirates. The majority of them have evasion and a lot of board control and some presence, so we can also abuse the pirates to basically gain advantage and cards like Portraiser to win with damage. Plan C, it's basically Breeches. This is a grindier version of the deck that normally you only have to use if Plan A and Plan B don't work out, and you can abuse his mechanic to grind out the opponents, keep the top card of everyone's deck in check, and use their resources instead of yours to gain an advantage on the board, and keep your counters and interaction to protect yourself after you have robbed them from their cards. Speaking of counters on interaction, our plans can be easily disrupted. So to stop this, we have Raise the Palisade, Cyclonic Rift, Fiery Cannonade, Admiral's Orders, an Offer You Can't Refuse, Gain Denial, Counterspell, Force of Will, Blusterstorm, Fierce Guardianship, Swan Song, and Tail's End. Our deck doesn't have either green or black, so in this case the number of tutors that we have in the deck is small. We run Drift of Phantasms, Imperial Recruiter, and Gamble. Imperial Recruiter is not a pirate, however it is 3 mana for a 1/1, and as a ATB you go and search your library for a creature with 2 power or less, reveal it and put it into your hand. Normally the cards that you go and pick up are either Dockside to create a bunch of treasures if you're missing some, Kadish to multiply the triggers of your commanders, as then the combat of your commanders will trigger to the other opponent, triggering their abilities multiple times, Lightning Rig Crew for combos that we are going to mention in just a little bit, and Glintthorn Buccaneer. Glintthorn, it's 3 mana for a 2/4 Minotaur Pirate with haste, and he has the static ability: whenever you discard a card, the Glintthorn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent. It also has an activated ability of 1 in colorless and 1 red, discard a card to draw a card, but you can only activate this if it's attacking. In this activated ability, it's a 2-card combo with our commander. Basically the way it works is that you need to have Malcolm and Glintthorn on the battlefield, and you attack with Glintthorn Buccaneer. Holding priority, you activate its ability, discarding a card and drawing a card. So the trigger will go on the stack of discarding a card, making Glintthorn dealing 1 damage to each opponent, which will then make Malcolm's ability trigger, creating a treasure for each opponent that was dealt damage. If you have 2 or more opponents, this will go infinite, as you will use the mana from those treasures to activate Glintthorn's Buccaneer ability again. However, there are some limits to this combo. Limitation number 1. If you only have 1 opponent with you when you're attacking, you only create 1 treasure per activation, and this is not enough mana to activate it again, so the combo doesn't go infinite. Limitation number 2. This is not infinite because it has a limitation on the cards that you have in your deck. So if you have opponents that have more life than you have cards in your deck, this will also not work. In a standard scenario, if you have 3 opponents with different HPs, you attack with Glintthorn and you create 3 treasures because you have 3 opponents and you only need 2 of those treasures to activate it again and again and again. So you win 1 extra treasure per activation until 1 player leaves the game. After that player leaves the game, now the treasures that you are creating are 2, and you are consuming those treasures to activate it again and again and again. When the second player leaves the game, however, now you don't have infinite mana, but you still have the extra treasures when you are activating Glintthorn's ability with the 3 players on the board, and you can try to use those extra treasures to finish the remaining player on the board. There is another combo that you can do with Glintthorn Buccaneer, in this case when you pair it with Curiosity. Curiosity is a 1 blue mana enchantment that whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. And what you need is Glintthorn Buccaneer on the battlefield, enchanted with Curiosity, and have a greater card number in your hand than the maximum hand size. You will go to your cleanup phase and you need to discard a card. But because you discard a card, Glinthorn will trigger, dealing 1 damage to each opponent, which will make it so Curiosity will draw you 1, 2 or 3 cards depending on the number of opponents that Glinthorn Buccaneer dealt damage, which will then make you discard cards due to your maximum hand size, dealing damage in drawing cards over and over and over again, basically killing your opponents. You can run out of cards in your deck and maybe die due to milling yourself pretty much, but your opponents in theory should die before this happens. We also have another combo in the deck that involves Malcolm. In this case is Malcolm, Lightning Recruit and Freed from the Real. Lightning Recruit is a 3 mana 0/5 Goblin Pirate that you can tap to deal 1 damage to each opponent, and whenever you cast a pirate spell you can untap it. So just by itself it's a very good card to pair with either Malcolm or even Breeches. The combo, however, allows you to do infinite damage with Freed from the Real. Freed from the Real is an enchantment creature for 3 mana that basically you can pay 1 blue to tap or untap the enchanted creature. So you need to have all 3 cards on the battlefield, Malcolm, Lightning Recruit and Freed from the Real attached to Lightning Recruit, and then tap him to deal 1 damage to each opponent, creating 1, 2 or 3 treasures, but this doesn't really matter as you only need 1 treasure. That 1 treasure you will use for 1 blue mana, which you will then use to untap Lightning Recruit, so you can then tap it again to deal 1 damage to each opponent, and you can basically repeat this over and over again until all of your opponents die. If you want a little bit more redundancy, you also have Pemin's Aura, which does the same ability of paying 1 blue to untap that creature. It's also 3 mana and as an extra of you being able to pay 1 blue to make it so Lightning Recruit cannot be targeted by spells or abilities this turn. You can also use this one on your deck to protect your commander or on any other card that you might see fit. The last combo that we have on the deck is Narset, Parter of Veils, which is a 3 mana 5 loyalty planeswalker with a static ability. Each opponent can draw more than 1 card each turn, and Windfall, which is a wheel effect, 3 mana sorcery, 2 and 1 blue that each player discards their hand and then draws cards equal to the number of cards that was greater discarded this way, which will result in our opponents in theory only having 1 card in hand and we having a bunch of cards in our hand. This combo does not win us the game, however it does limit the amount of resources our opponents have and probably withdraw one of our combos or win conditions, so it's a very handy tool to have in a deck as well. The deck is very resilient due to the amount of interaction and card draw that it offers. It also has a very big board presence, which is not common on these types of decks that are Izzet. You also can, if you want to add an extra color, run Tana, the Bloodsworn if you want to add green, which will give you a ton of green tutors to grab one of the combos, or Vow Smasher if you want to add black, which will also open the door to the other pirates that exist that we cannot run as we don't have black as an identity of the deck. Do tell us what you think about the deck on the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching guys, and see you soon.